So recently, I've been working a lot with web frameworks while building out my site called hungrymind.com. Now, it's been fun learning, it's been great, but JavaScript kind of sucks. Yesterday, I posted on X that I wish there was a web framework built with Dart. And then Temmie came through and said Jaspr, and that got me interested. I never heard of Jaspr before, so I took a quick look. So if you visit Jaspr, Jaspr says it's a modern web framework for building websites, and Dart with support for both client-side and server-side rendering. This sounds like exactly what I wanted, but after digging into it a bit, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it, honestly. Let me show you why. Now, I'm sure this question will come up, like why I don't use Flutter Web. Made a whole video on it. It's not that I don't use it, but the projects I'm working on don't work for Flutter Web. Give you a quick summary. So Flutter Web is made for building web apps, while all these other frameworks build websites. So Jaspr can build websites while Flutter Web can build web apps. The thing is, with Jaspr, you get SEO and all the positives of building with HTML. Now, here's a bit of a side note because I'm genuinely curious, but I've had this thought that since Google owns both Google Search and Flutter, couldn't they technically alter one of those to make sure that SEO works well with Flutter Web as well? I don't really know the answer. I'm not an expert in this part, but if you know, let me know in the comments. So I wanted to show you quickly how Jaspr works. They have really great documentation that I recommend you go check it out if you want to work with it. Quickly, you need to add the Jaspr CLI to your computer. Then you can create your website using the CLI, and you'll get a project similar to this. Now, to actually run the project, you're going to do Jaspr serve. Make sure you don't put an E there. So this is what a Jaspr site looks like. Now, the big cool thing here is if you open it up, you'll see it has all the HTML here. So right now it's just an H1 with hello world. And the way you write it here is you create these DOM components. So for example, this was an H1 tag with hello world. Let's change this to hello Tadas. Let's give it some style. We'll do styles.box. Give it padding. Edge insets.all works. And then here, where you normally in Flutter, you'd add a value of 10. Instead, you have to do something a little different called a unit and then 10 pixels. So now if we save it, it doesn't have hot reload, so you have to reload the site yourself. But you see, it gets reloaded, and now we have some padding. Then to have more components, since this returns an iterable, basically it returns a list for you, you can just add more components. So say here we want a div component with a child of Tadas again. Now you can nest components within components. So let's say instead of just displaying a text, we want another DOM component here. We'll give it a P tag, so it's a paragraph. And then inside you can have also multiple children as well. Here we'll say, welcome to my blog. Keep scrolling, or something like that. Now again, so this is a component within a component, and you can give this styling. Let's say we want to give it a color, give it a background color, colors.yellow. If we refresh, we see that it's all here. Now they're all in the same row because this is within a paragraph tag, but you can split it up to be on the next row by adding more paragraph tags or separate divs and stuff like that. And yes, you can have variables here, so you can have state management, you can pass in the names, do all that, have it be responsive. And your site should work. So now if you're coming from Flutter, this should look somewhat familiar, right? This doesn't look that bad. You could kind of see how this would work. And I think it's a pretty cool concept for people coming specifically from Flutter. But since I've been working with web frameworks, this does not look great. This looks like so much more complexity than just like a nice web framework. And even though you do get to use Dart here, for me, I don't think it's worth switching to Dart in order to work like this. So let me just show you how, for example, a web framework would handle this. So my favorite ones are Astro and Svelte. So in Svelte, so everything reloads, it has a hot reload built in. And you see like this file just looks so much cleaner. So you have the JavaScript at the top where we create a name for me. Then you have HTML just like this. Instead of having to create DOM component, give it a string for a tag, do styles that you have to kind of learn how to mess around with. Like for example, this unit.pixel. I'm sure there's more things that are like that. You just put it right in there, just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now on my HungryMind site, for example, this is an Astro. So same thing, instead of having the script tags, it has these little dashes. So you put the JavaScript up here, and then it's just straight HTML here. Here's another example. You can pass in like variables like the count, title, and stuff, and you put it in the paragraph tag. And you can imagine as you build out your site, it's going to get more complex, and you're going to have so many of these DOM elements everywhere, taking up 4 lines of code every time, and then just a huge widget tree. Now they did have an example of a pretty complex application that they built, and like this was one of the more complicated files like I have. They did a pretty good job of being organized. So you can kind of diminish that by being very organized, creating components, and doing good state management, which what it seems here. You can make it look decent. So if you're coming from Flutter, this might look pretty good. This might be a great option for you to get into making websites. Now styling is a lot of a preference thing. So this is definitely like preference. For example, if you look at React styles, so I think React is probably maybe even worse. Like, I don't know. I don't like React either. Maybe not worse, but definitely not pretty. Like this is what React code looks like. Everything's just jumbled in. It's called JSX. I don't really like it. This isn't even a complex file. It's just like a toggle button. I just like when things look nice and they're pretty and they're simple. Although this development style is probably not for me, at least not right now. Obviously, this is still an early project. It might develop more. It might be a lot cooler in a year. I don't want to jinx it. I think if you're coming from Flutter and you don't know web development, I think this could be a great start. Now, the last thing is that the JavaScript ecosystem is massive. There's been so much content, so much apps, so much everything built on JavaScript. So there's a lot of packages for you to use and all that stuff. And Jaspr is pretty new. That's another thing to keep in mind. But either way, huge respect to the Jaspr team. I think this is a really cool initiative. I think it'll help a lot of Flutter developers build SEO-friendly sites if they need it. But for me, I think I'm going to stick with Astro and the massive JavaScript ecosystem, at least for now.